Good evening and welcome to the Village of Westmont Committee, the whole meeting for July 15, 2010. I'd like to begin by having our substitute clerk take the roll call, please. Fred Kimball.
Mayor Ron?
Here.
Clerk Simsky is absent tonight attending a professional training conference for the Clerks Association. Trustee Fleming?
Here.
Trustee Forsley?
Here.
Trustee Klebanow?
Here.
Trustee Emery?
Here.
Trustee Scott?
Here.
Trustee Seneca?
Here.
Manager Searle?
Here.
Attorney Zemanak?
Here.
Police Chief Mulhern?
Here.
Finance Director Van Boggett?
Here.
And Village Planner Malik. Fire Chief Trout? We have a quorum present, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item this evening are the minutes of the committee, the whole meeting held July 1st and board meeting held July 6, 2010. Any corrections to be reported? Hearing none, moving right along, we've got two open forum requests. And the first is Michael Connery from 404 North Warwick. You care to step up to the podium, please?
Yes, first my name's Mike Connery, Mayor Ron. I met you a few years back. I sold your car many years ago, but I want to say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be here and present our request. I moved to Westmont back about 2001. I currently own the home at 404 North Warwick. I've been there 2 years now. I'm employed at McGrath Lexus, have been employed there for 3 years now. And I want to say I'm really thankful for all you guys have done for the car business. I was at Toyota years back when we met, and Frank Trout, I think I saw him. Yeah, there you are. I saw you at Toyota, Frank. Anyways, point of the story, I thanks so much for all you've done for the community. Thanks for giving me a second to speak here. The point of the request is what we have where we live at the intersection of Melrose Avenue and Warwick Avenue. The residents there, I am a concerned citizen, a father, and there is, we're requesting that a four-way stop sign be placed at that intersection. It's currently Warwick runs without a stop sign until you get to the next intersection, I believe it's Trowie and Warwick. We would like a four-way stop at Melrose and Warwick in the name of safety. It's home to a lot of family, kids, so forth. It's an actual bus stop. And I, as one, have been there for 2 years now and have felt the need to come and act in the name of safety to do something about it. And I'm not alone in my request. I've submitted myself and a couple other residents of the block, we rallied together and got signatures of up and down Melrose as well as up and down Warwick, the 300 and 400 blocks of Warwick, and wanted to submit our request that you give us, if you could please, a stop sign there. We feel it would truly make the just that area a little safer. That's my request, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, we can certainly take a look at that and see if that would be something that we could do. Sometimes we're affected by the amount of traffic and as to whether or not there are traffic warrants that will justify putting in a stop sign. But we could certainly look at that, and Ron Searle can respond.
Yeah, we know
back
that it doesn't meet the traffic warrants, but we can do an engineering study of the intersection and come back with a recommendation.
Okay.
And that would relate to speed of vehicles, number of accidents. I don't think it meets the number of accidents or the traffic volume to warrant a stop sign, so we'd have to look at other factors, and perhaps you guys could study that.
Yeah, we should take a look at it.
So what happens to us if we just decide that we want to put a stop sign there and don't have the proper legal?
The traffic regulations are really guidelines to follow. So I think if you err on the side of caution and put one in, you're better protected than if an intersection meets all the warrants and you ignore a hazard and don't put a stop sign in.
Okay.
That being said, it's been the practice of the village for years and of most communities to only place stop sign when it's warranted by sound engineering judgment.
Okay. Very good. We will follow up on this, and I'll give your information and all the signatures to the village manager, and we will get back to you. We certainly want to do all we can to make sure everyone is as safe as they possibly can be as they traverse throughout the village. And we often get complaints about, well, there's so many cars on my street, the traffic is so heavy. Well, we all have those problems wherever we live in the village, so whatever we can do to make situations safer, we're certainly willing to try to do that. We appreciate your coming in this evening. Thank you. Next is a familiar name that all of us know. This gentleman wants to come forth and speak on. He actually filled out an open forum request, and that is our police chief, Mr. Thomas Mulhern. Yes, sir.
Anything.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm here on wearing my other hat as the spokesperson for the Illinois Law Enforcement Torch Run for Special Olympics. This Tuesday, they're having a very first event in Illinois. It's the anniversary of the very first Special Olympics, which was held in Chicago. And they're creating a event which hopefully will become annual, which is called Spare Change for Real Change. And they're asking towns and volunteers throughout the state and certain areas to stand on street corners just like the Lions Club do and other clubs do on Kiwanis Day and Penis Day and Candy Day with collect spare change to create a real change for Special Olympics in Illinois. And it'll be this Tuesday at the July 20th from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And we're seeking permission to get the board's permission to permit this for Cass and Ogden. There may be people out there, I don't know if they'll be out there the whole 12 hours. There'll be some in the morning and some in the afternoon rush, but we're seeking permission, the board's permission, to be able to do this. I've checked with the clerk's office and we'll apply for a special solicitor's permit for this. It's a not-for-profit organization, but no, I need the board's permission to do that as well.
Questions? Comments?
Sounds like a good.
Sounds good.
Does this have to go on the agenda, John, then, or?
Because it's on the public streets, the way the ordinance is written, it does.
I will send you the information tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Well, while you're there, you might want to add some additional comments. I just want to congratulate our Deputy Police Chief Randy King for, I believe it's 30 years, 4 months service to the Village of Westmont in our police department, and tomorrow will be his last day. He's retiring. He's performed a lot of wonderful duties for the Village of Westmont for many, many years, and he's the type of person that, from my observation, and I'm sure you and everybody else will agree, when he's asked to do something, he does it, and you never hear a complaint. I've never heard a complaint from him, and he's just done a yeoman's job, and he will be greatly missed. And we had a little celebration the police department did over at the police department yesterday afternoon. And he was saying that his wife has to work 3 years longer before she can retire. So my question is, can he work 3 years longer so then they can both retire together? You know?
Well, I echo your comments, Mayor. He is going to be a tremendous loss for the police department. He was an outstanding police officer, an outstanding leader, and an outstanding friend to all of us, and especially to myself. I've been here longer a little bit than Randy, so I've known him his whole career here, but we became deputy chiefs together. We worked very closely together. We have a friendship, and as you talk about his dedication, there'd always be a time that I'd go in on a Saturday morning to try to get something done, and he's there before me. What are you doing here? And he looks at me and said, the same thing you are. And to go to show, his last day, the scheduled day is Friday, yet he's still a village employee until Sunday. And he said, he goes, you know, if something happens Sunday, please give me a call. I'll gladly come in. And he will. Today he was out there trying to make his last traffic stop. He was out, you know, he's trying to get all his lasts in. But it's a tremendous loss to the police department. He's been a mentor to all of us, an outstanding supervisor throughout the years, and someone who I've come to rely on, all the chiefs have come to rely on over the years. And he's going to be hard to replace, but I wish him well, and his wife Sharon and their family. He plans on relaxing. He will be here again. We will have a retirement presentation to him within, I think, sometime in August here at the village board, but he just plans on relaxing, taking it easy. He's still going to donate a lot of his time for Operation Support Our Troops. He does that every Saturday, and this Saturday they have their concert out at Cantigny, and he's in charge of their security and traffic control. So he's donating his time out there as well, too. So I also wish him congratulations, and today I told him, is there anything I can do to get him to stay? Short of, you know, chaining him to his desk and locking him in the office, but he'd probably still find a way to get out. So we do wish him well.
The pictures that were on display, there was a small one of Time magazine. I mean, there were some humorous ones, but it said it was his son on the front cover. Is that? That was Chief Randy or Tim had that. Tim, his son, Tim is a part-time firefighter here at for the village. Tim, that was like one of those you can go and have that done, and he did that. Tim, I believe, served 2 tours over in Iraq. Okay. And that was one thing, is I know that was very, very hard on Randy, because every time his phone rang, while Tim was over there, you could just tell he didn't know what that phone call was going to be, and that was very, very stressful and very hard for him, as it is, I'm sure, for all the families with our men and women who are overseas serving and protecting us every day. It's something I can't fathom having to go through, yet they lived at this daily. So not only should we thank our service people, but also their parents and their families for, you know, putting up with that as well. Very good. Thank you, Tim. The next thing I wanted to mention was to thank everyone that worked so hard to put the Taste of Westmont together this past weekend. It was one of the best, if not the best, that we've ever had. The weather was perfect up until the last 2 hours on Sunday evening. I think all the restaurants that I've talked to did well. Linda Sabatka said that Carnival did very, very well. So hopefully they will have made enough money to not have to come to the village again next year for funds to operate Taste of Westmont next year. But my thanks to the Mackards, the husband and wife team, for all they've done. Larry McIntyre, who's the village's representative, to the Westmont Special Events Corporation and all the work that he did, especially getting the entertainment for Friday night that a number of us really enjoyed, especially the section on the Beatles. But it was a great weekend, and we can't thank the residents of the village and all the volunteers that came out and worked so hard to put all that together. So it was a wonderful event. It gave a lot of us an opportunity to see and talk to people in the village that we don't see throughout the year, but had a chance to say hello to them over the weekend. So it was a great time for all, very successful. And I got a question, a couple of questions for the manager, trick questions. I recently have got a number of complaints about all the traffic and how people have to wait to get across the tracks. And I noticed that we have a lot of coal trains coming through here. And now they're traveling slower than they ever used to in the past. And it's taking forever, it seems, for them to clear the intersection. And I'm wondering if there are any rules in terms of how long they can block an intersection, because it is really slowing. I mean, there's enough traffic, but the volume of trains is making it more and more difficult. But the coal trains in particular are the ones that really seem to be going slowly. So I'm wondering if you could take a look at that and see, and investigate it. Or
My recollection is, yes, there is a law that will actually result in fines if they block it for too long. I don't recall what that length of time is. Maybe the chief knows.
But it's a standing train, too. Yes,
Standing train.
standing train.
Creeping, it doesn't.
Now, what about creeping?
Creeping is moving.
And that's what they do a lot of the time.
And, well, there's track construction going on, so all of the commuter and freight traffic is affected, and they're running even the commuter trains on different scheduling because they have to space them further out due to having to go around the construction. So they've let the commuters know that, and as you know, the freight trains run on the same tracks, and that's why they're putting slow orders through on the freights. And that should alleviate sometime late summer, early fall.
Wow.
It's really getting to be bad. And for the first time, I think a month and a half ago, they've got 2 engines pulling, and at the end, they've got another 3rd engine pushing from the back. And we've never had, I see that up in the mountains, but you don't see it here, so they can pull more and more cars all the time, and that's wonderful. It saves diesel fuel, but it sure inconveniences a lot of people.
And you know, we are taking our share of the traffic on Cass due to the Belmont construction. So,
Right.
and that's going to go on for another 3 years.
Wow.
Not fun. Thanks for all that good news, Ellen.
Yeah, that's the best news I've heard tonight. And the next thing I wanted to make mention of is with the carpenters' strike going on has affected road projects here, especially on West Burlington. But my question is that everything is still going full steam on the tollway construction because they have no strike clauses in their contracts. Can we, as a village, put in a no strike clause on contracts that we issue?
For the future, I'm sure we can. I'm sure that's going to result in a higher cost in the contract, but that's
Right.
something we could
I
certainly
mean, at
look at.
least something that we can look at, because the West Burlington project was a big nuisance. That was all supposed to be finished for the Taste of Westmont, and our public works people had to, make some temporary arrangements and bring in some temporary gravel, and it was just a big mess, and a lot of extra work. If we could take a look at that.
We will.
Okay. And I think that's all that I have. Moving right along, next, our village clerk. She's left any messages with?
Not to my knowledge, Your Honor.
Okay.
Other than to announce that she is at a professional training seminar.
Okay, thank you. Our village attorney, John Zemanek.
I've got nothing, thank you.
Ron Searle, our village manager.
Thank you. Just a request for executive session for personnel and pending litigation.
Okay. Trustees, start with Trustee Klebanow.
Nothing except I had a great weekend at the Taste, and I agree. I have to thank everybody who works so hard to pull it off, and the volunteers who come out at the end for taking their time. It was great, and I'm glad I was in town to enjoy it. Thank you. That's all I
Very
have.
good, thank you. Trustee Scott.
Nothing this evening, sir.
Trustee Fleming.
Just to piggyback a couple of comments that you made, Mr. Mayor. Public Works meeting on Tuesday evening, we discussed several of these issues, and the other problem that we're going to be facing with the operators on strike as well as the laborers on strike is we are running short on our gravel supplies and our asphalt supplies. So the longer this strike goes on is going to shorten up any repair work that we may even be able to do in-house. I know that Public Works Manager Steve May is contacting one of our fellow villages to see if we might be able to borrow some material from them. We do have some grindings over behind the waterworks that we're going to probably use in some filling areas. The other thing, and it did come up as far as the no strike clause in some of the contracts, what happens with that though is the union has to agree to that with the particular contractor in order for it to go through. We can request it, but that doesn't mean that we're going to get it. So I mean, that is something that can, I mean, you have a lot of school projects right now, some are going, some aren't. Mm-hmm. That's the way they did it, but those are a couple of things that we're going to face if this goes on much longer. And the way it sounds right now, there is a very wide gap between what they were asking for and what they've been offered. They've asked for a 15% increase over the next 3 years. And their benefits, as far as their health and welfare, to be held pretty much at where they are right now with very minimal increases. And of course, the opposite side has only offered a certain amount. So it's hard to say where this is going to go. So the only thing I can say to our public as a whole is bear with us. We're going to do the best we can with what we've got. But because of these unions, we can't get into the asphalt plants and we can't get the gravel out of the pits to get them in here for the work that we need to do in some cases. And the last thing I'd like to say, and I was told not to say it anyway, but I'm going to do it anyway. Happy birthday, Laura. That's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Seneca.
Thank you. I too just wanted to echo comments about the taste and especially thank our police and fire that were out there tirelessly, and especially Randy King, who actually delayed his departure from the village so that he could help us out over that weekend. And the residents were great and the visitors were great. It was just a wonderful, wonderful weekend, and without our volunteers it wouldn't have been possible. Phenomenal. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Trustee Forsley.
Just to echo those same comments, thank you.
Trustee Emery.
Couple of things. First of all, I'd like to wish Dan Vath of our Public Works Department a speedy recovery. He's given his friends and family quite a few scares, and Dan, enough is enough. Time to
Get well.
Get really better. And also Monday night before the village board meeting, we have our Public Safety Committee meeting in the boardroom at 6:30. And lastly, I'd like to ask our residents who are watching this evening, we're starting to see a problem, and there was a problem last weekend regarding it, on spray-painted graffiti in various parts of the village. We all understand that people who live in the city, sometimes they want to move to the suburbs to give their kids, get them away from gangs and a better life and all that, and we applaud those efforts and certainly support them. But this isn't the city, and we don't need our buildings and our equipment tagged with spray paint. And so people need to understand that this also isn't the city where you go, oh, well, you know, bad kids. You go to jail for property damage for that. But we need our citizens' help. If you see something, get on your cell phone and call the police. Don't just think, you know, the kids belong out at 5 o'clock in the morning by walls, standing there with hooded sweatshirts, you know, with things appearing on the walls. Please, if you see it, you know, nobody's asking you to stop or confront them, but immediately make a call, because we need to make sure they understand this isn't going to be tolerated here. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. New business. Appropriation ordinance public hearing. Board to conduct a public hearing on Monday, July 19th, 2010 for the fiscal year 2010-2011. Appropriation ordinance.
Good evening. As required by Illinois compiled statute, before you this evening is the fiscal year 2011 appropriation ordinance for all village funds, which has been prepared for public hearing and consideration on Monday evening's agenda. By statute, this ordinance must be approved and have an effective date no later than the first quarter of the applicable fiscal period. The presentation of this ordinance during the public hearing marks the final step in the 2011 budget process. The proposed appropriation ordinance for fiscal year 2011 totals $42,214,050. The Village of Westmont portion of this appropriation is $39,304,050, and the Westmont Public Library portion is $2,910,000. The village appropriation is $6,819,185 more than the approved budget, which is 20% in excess, which is fairly standard for an appropriation ordinance for a community our size.
Just for clarification, we have to appropriate, otherwise we can't spend the money, but just because that number exists doesn't mean we spend it if we don't receive the revenue. But we, can't go beyond that ceiling.
That is correct. And there was also a certificate of estimated revenues included with the packet that actually details our accurate revenues as are in the budget, our budgeted revenues. But we do have to appropriate in excess of the approved budget amount.
Questions? Questions from board member?
Pretty routine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next item, sound amplifying device license. Board to review the issuance of a sound amplifying device license to Mr. John Varega, Eclecticville at 141 South Cass.
Mr. Mayor, we issued a sound amplifying license back at the end of April to Mr. Variga, and recently we were contacted by a neighbor who had contacted the police and had reported that one of the terms of that license had been violated, and in discussions with the mayor, we felt it was appropriate to bring the issue to the board for discussion. I believe Mr. Variga is here tonight, and I think Mr. Hogan is here as well. They want to comment, so.
As I understand it, the violation was that they were supposed to stop playing at 10 o'clock.
Correct.
And at 10:05, a gentleman called the police station.
Well, there's more than that.
This is a permission that the village has given to Mr. Varega. And if you know, if it's bothering neighbors, our job here is to try to work together and meet everyone's needs as best that we can. And all of the requirements for him to have that license are listed on his permit. But if you have some other comments that you would like to make, and briefly
yes, I do.
Make those
Please.
Comments.
To expedite this, can I hand this to the trustees so it would expedite everything? There's more than just one violation. Is that, if I may go a little bit in the past, especially to Trustee Emery that wasn't here, Eclecticville started playing on Cass Avenue to the wee hours of the night, on many occasions past midnight, till the neighbors started complaining to the police department. The village then got involved and stopped them playing. Eclecticville came in front of the trustees and requested a permit to play on Thursday night during cruise nights, saying it was to promote his business. They also requested that the music be shut down on the speakers on the light poles on Thursday nights. Excuse me. That the village also purchased a device to do so. The village then, the next year, he came into the village and requested at 10 p.m. with one small amplified device was granted. We missed the posting in the paper. I did come in front of the body of trustees and yourself, Your Honor, but was told that you already granted the license. The neighbors and I decided that we would just live with it this year, and we would deal with it in the year 2010. That's when we come to now. Eclecticville requested a permit to the village in April of this year and was granted a sound amplified device permit. But however, their business is closed. This has always been asked for Eclecticville. They never came in front of the trustees. We had a committee to watch the internet so that we may come in front of the trustees and voice our objections to this. The business has been down since December, I would say December of 2009 or January of 2010. There has even been a sign stating that they are closed until further notice. I cannot find anywhere in the archives with the village where a music outdoor music event, such as block parties, Casey's DJ, Time Warner Park, etc., all these permits have been granted that would have to end at 9 o'clock. A so-called one amplified device that was granted has grown to multi amplified devices, speakers on pedestals. This has been used solely to throw off the police department that has responded for the noise. They show them that they have an amplified device permit. This is very hard for an officer in the field at night to determine what the board has deemed appropriate. And it is really to promote their business. We understand this as the neighbors. But jam night goes on at Thursday nights. It starts at 8 and it ends at 10, but the business is closed. I've never heard of a business having a promotion, but then have their doors closed for the business. They have played one time so far this year, and the police were called since they were playing past 10 o'clock. 10 p.m. may not be late for Electricville, but they have been insensitive to the neighbors. When they are open for business, they do open up at 12 p.m. But to the nurse, the painter, the secretary, the law student, the plumber, the engineer, the waitress, the construction worker, the insurance agent, the housewife that's taking care of her family, and the physical therapist, they feel that 10 o'clock is just too late. They have signed this petition, and the other fine residents of Westmont. We are not totally against Electricville on having their night, as we have stated in the past. We think that it should run with cruise night, but we feel it should run to 7 to 9 with no amplified device. This has been steamrolling every year. And you have granted one device, but how come the guitar has an amp, the bass has an amp, the singer has a microphone, the harmonica guy has another microphone, and then there's two speakers hanging up on a pedestal? That is not one device. That is our concern, and we think that the board should look at this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from board members?
I'd like to hear from Mr. Variga.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor Ron, board members. I should have been taking notes. The reason I've been closed is because I was sick. I was in the hospital, and I probably won't open up yet for maybe another month. As far as there being more than one electrical device, there is just one. As far as it running past 10 o'clock, if I'm not mistaken, AT&T is absolutely sure that the time is right, and I go exactly by that. Another thing that really bothers me about this is the waste of resources. I mean, you know, everybody's into the austerity thing. Well, wasting a policeman's time is just as bad as flushing money down the toilet. And the policeman came to sit in the lot and listen to us for a while. I went and spoke with him. I told him we had a permit. He had no problem with it. We were not going past 10 o'clock, not playing music. It took us a while to take the stuff down. But I'm just wondering where it comes to be, where being a civic-minded person, and where does harassment start in this? I object.
Well, that's nice.
being a bad loser is also a kind of a contention here. If Mr. Hogan, to begin with, would have come over and talked to me, he's never spoken with me. It's just been this dueling thing, and I'm getting too old for this stuff. I mean, if you say right now, forget about it, I'll forget about it. It doesn't mean anything to me anymore. I mean, I see my life flash before my eyes once a couple of months ago, and I changed my perspective on things. Now, this is all being done in the name of not just promoting my business, but promoting the downtown area of Westmont. Now, the cars that go by during the period of time when we're playing, I really can't tell you the difference in the levels, but some of the cars are really loud. I don't hear Mr. Hogan complaining about that. When the speaker system is on and they're projecting the band out in front of his house, well, how is he going to feel when we're playing at the car show? Is he going to complain then too?
Mr. Variga, would you please stop the personal attack and just respond to about the speakers and the time and that type of thing?
I completely deny the whole thing, and it's Eclecticville, not Electicville.
I have a question for the police chief. Could we get a report of how many complaints there have been and from how many different people? Because I have to say, in driving by, I've never found it offensive, but then I'm usually in my car or I'm walking, so, you know, I'd really like to get an idea.
I can by tomorrow have a summary of the calls with the service to this address. I do know on this incident, we researched it, and I believe this was the only one for this year, as far from my recollection. I remember doing this last year for the permit, and we provided a summary for the board, and I will do so again tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. I know that they've played at the park and they've played at cruiser nights, and the music itself is quite enjoyable, but we want to work with the neighborhoods, of course. So if we can get a handle on, you know, are there a number of complaints, or has there been one or two every year? That's what I want to know. And from different people.
Right.
John, would it hurt if you started a half hour earlier and ended a half hour earlier?
Well, it wouldn't bother me because I probably would be there anyway. But some of the players come from pretty far to come and participate. I mean, one of the ladies that comes lives way on the north side of the city, and it takes her a while to get there. I mean, I really don't think it's unreasonable. I sure go to bed at 9 o'clock. I mean, I don't know what time everybody else goes to bed, but it's not 9 o'clock for me.
Well, just because it's not 9 o'clock for you doesn't mean it isn't for somebody else.
Well,
and you know, and understanding the scenario here, don't get me wrong. I mean, I've had time to look at this too, and as far as someone coming from the north side of Chicago or whatever, that's not a concern. As far as I'm concerned, where they come from, they come from. They get there, they get there. They don't, they don't. There's evidently something going on here because we have two sides, two different complete points of view. So now it's going to come down to us figuring out what the middle ground of this is. Now we've got a resident who is adamant in what he's saying. You're at the podium this evening completely denying everything that he's saying. So now we're going to have the police chief get into the records and take time to dig that up to see what issues there may be involved with this. The other thing that is kind of bothersome, I'm sorry to hear that you've had some health issues, but is your place of business open for business on Thursday nights when you're playing?
No.
Well, then that kind of changes the whole avenue of this. The purpose of this is, and was, if I remember correctly, was that businesses, and one of the things was, as far as your particular place goes, would be open for business, so patrons could go in and shop. Now, if you're not operating during the week as a business, but then yet on Thursday night, you're coming in and having other people come in and play instruments in front of your location and still not be open for patrons to go in and take a look at your shop, honestly, Mr. Rega, I've got a little problem with that.
Well, I assure you that's a temporary thing.
Well, and I think maybe what should have happened, and honestly, and I'll sit here and say it, then maybe we should have temporarily suspended the license.
I echo what Trustee Fleming says, and I'll tell you, sir, that you have 25 neighbors that live, you know, in those apartments, and mostly apartments and other residences very close to Eclecticville. And we know they're right on the street, and a lot of them are, you know, their only windows face Cass. They're small residences, and the people who live there deal with, you know, what they've got. You have Mr. Hogan, who comes in here and is willing to say, you know, if you could just at least cut out the music at 9 o'clock. I mean, I think that is, asking an hour earlier to close it off is being extremely generous on their part when you have 25 people that have signed this saying, you know, this is really noisy. I can only put in perspective that if somebody had a garage band outside where I live, because that's what it would be, we have garage bands in garages by where I live, but if they moved it outside till 10 o'clock, it would take a lot less than 25 people being upset for us to really go into action to get them to stop, period. The offer to say, hey, you know, we'd like to work with you and we understand you want your band, but we'd like it to shut down at 9 o'clock, being ridiculed and said, well, if you guys cut it out, I couldn't care less. I'm inclined to take you up on your offer of if you cut it out, you couldn't care less.
Well, that'll work for me. Thank you.
Any other conversations?
Can I ask?
Can I address some of the personal attacks since they were made?
I don't think we need to get into that.
No, we don't need to get into that, sir. Sorry.
Now that it's, they don't come before us, that it gets taken into the clerk's office, how do the neighbors get notified of this permit? Do we send letters out? Like when you're going to do some planning commission, you have to notify within a certain area?
No.
Then I might suggest for future band stuff that we may have to do that, and whoever wants music may have to bring the stamps in for us to notify the residents in a certain area that this petitioner is doing this, and if you have any problems, you have till X amount of time to come into the clerk's office and discuss it or go before the village board. But I think we could remedy at least finding a way of getting the residents notified that this permit is being issued.
The ordinance allows music until 8 o'clock p.m. So maybe that would apply if someone wants to exceed the 8 p.m. limit.
But that wouldn't be with amplifiers, though, would it?
Yeah, the attached
Yeah, it's in here.
Yeah, it's in the sound ordinance.
Oh, it's in there.
Sound amplification ordinance. It doesn't require that it come to the village board, but it does say the hours restriction limited to, let's see, not allowed on Sunday or between the hours of 8 p.m. to 8 a.m.
So anybody could play an instrument outside amplified?
They need a license.
But,
They need the license approved. It doesn't come to the board usually. I guess in a situation like this where it's outside of the regular allowed hours, or if the clerk has a question about it, it comes to the board. I guess a suggestion to make it easier compared to your run-of-the-mill requests that might come in, if it's going to exceed the hours, then perhaps they should notify the neighbors, because there would be an issue then, potentially.
Okay. Any way that we can at least let the neighbors know without having, I mean, I miss the people coming for block parties, because I have no idea if anybody's had block parties now. I have no idea what's going on. We don't get a list. I don't know who's having block parties, who's got music at it, what's going on, and I really missed that. That was fun to know our residents were having fun out there, and now everything's handled and we don't know. Unless you run into a dead-end street and you know what's happening. So, yeah, that would work at least if they go beyond the time. I'd be happy with that.
So on Monday evening, are we voting on to either pull this license or keep it in place? Is that what the vote is going to be on Monday evening?
You can revoke it, you can amend it, or you can leave it in place.
Okay. Well, I mean, from the way the gentleman just left, I guess I kind of have an idea where his mindset's at, so.
So do we need to change the wording on the agenda?
We would. I think it would be wise to try and reach a consensus whether you want to, which of those three actions you'd want to take.
Do we want to pull it back to 9 o'clock, or do we want to pull it?
Well, as far as I'm
I don't want to
concerned,
do anything until I know exactly how many complaints there have been, and I want to understand it a little bit better.
Well, we could put it on the agenda and have that information for you by Monday, I'm sure.
There's been one complaint this year.
And I don't know how many we've had in the past. I mean, I'll be honest, people put a petition in front of you and they sign it. So I really want to know. I'd like to talk to some of those people.
From my independent
I'd
recollection.
like to hear from people.
There was not a large amount per year. I want to say maybe in 1 year, 5, and that's going back over a history of 3-4 years maybe, since they've ever been doing this. But there was nothing where there was one every single time and everything. They were very sporadic. And as a gentleman mentioned, this is the first complaint this year. The call came in at 10:04, 4 minutes after 10 o'clock, 4 minutes past the time by our clock.
I also think as being a good neighbor, though, if it meant stopping a little bit earlier,
I think he would do that.
what difference would it make at that point? Try to keep good things with the
Try to
neighbors.
reach some kind of compromise. I mean, we want our neighborhoods to be comfortable.
We could amend it, and then if he wants to use it, he can. If not, he can just let it go himself.
That's a
And
thought,
leave
too.
it up to him if he doesn't want to use it, but since he's already come in for it, we could just amend the time. And then if he decides that's not good enough,
Then
he
it's
can
the
walk
ball's
away
in his
from it.
court. Could do that.
So move it back to 9 o'clock,
7,
7 to 9.
7 to 9, yeah. During, I think the same as what it is downtown.
Okay, any other?
I tend to agree with Trustee Fleming, though. If his business isn't going to be open for a while, I don't know that you want to do it this year. And just, he's not going to do it, he's not going to be open for another month. Is that what he said, somewhere in there?
Yeah, I mean, I
Now you look at
guess
August, this only goes to August 26th.
I mean, I know that not all the businesses are open on cruising nights, but I would think that if you're going to have a band out in front of your place of business, you would at least have your doors open so people could go in and shop at your location. And I mean, he hasn't been open for this period of time. I mean, I have a hard time dealing with that particular part of this issue. I mean, it's like, okay, you're asking for our help to promote something, but yet,
You're not promoting yourself.
you're not promoting yourself and you're not open.
Yeah.
I mean, 7 to 9 is fine, but I mean, honestly, if I'm sitting here right now, I'd say revoke it. I mean, it's just like.
It almost seems like it doesn't make any difference where it's at that point there.
Right,
Because if
I mean-
they're not coming into the business, what difference is it where they have their location in it then?
Yeah, but I thought, I got the impression that maybe he wasn't doing it. Was he ill or something? And if he was, I mean, music is healing, I mean, if nothing else. But as long as he doesn't, make himself obnoxious to the neighbors. And maybe he doesn't have anybody who can be inside working, an employee, and pay somebody while he's outside doing the music. But at least his business is getting attention, I guess is all he's looking for. He said it.
But it's not up to us to man his store. It's his business. And if him having to put his instrument down to take care of a customer, I would think that he would want to do that.
I think we're having way too much discussion
Yeah,
about
I mean,
this.
I'm just, it's like.
I think we should just
Oh, I can go to 9 o'clock, but I'm with trustee Fleming. I mean, I feel for the gentleman that he's ill, and it doesn't sound like he's going to be able to come back and work. You know, I'd be in favor of revoking it this year, and if he wants it next year, we go to 9 o'clock next year, and we're done.
Look at it come spring.
But I mean, if everybody agrees on 9 this year, I'm okay with that
I mean,
too, but that's kind of where I'm coming from.
I'm sort of looking at the yeses and nos being go to 9 or not at all. I mean, keeping it open to 10, I don't think is any longer an option among the 6 of us. And so, you know, if there's something to vote on, it would be 7 to 9. And I need to think till Monday whether it's yay or nay on 7 to 9. I can't tell you.
Why don't I put it on the agenda, 7 to 9, you guys can vote it down if you so decide.
Okay, that's good.
Fine.
Sounds good, thank you. Next item, 276 East Ogden, Audi. Board to consider request for a plat of vacation for utility easements.
Good evening. I'm Tom McKay, representing Westmont Imports. This is, I think, just a housekeeping issue on the Audi dealership. After we purchased Emmys, we consolidated the Audi lot with Emmys because they were 2 separate lots. They had easements on their side yards. We're just trying to vacate those easements, so in the future, when we want to expand the building, we can expand across the easements. Or easements aren't going to be there anymore. That's all we're here for tonight.
It's easy enough.
Do we need any other further clarification?
We were here last night. It was a lot of fun, too.
Tom always gets the good meetings.
Summary.
Just a
No sign
routine
request tonight?
housekeeping matter, as he's indicated, unless there are other questions.
Shannon, are they planning on expanding past the lot lines?
Not at this point. This is actually related to the addition that's underway right now at the dealership. Prior to the approvals for that, lots when they're platted are required to have the drainage and utility easements put in place. And once consolidated, it's just like a matter of course that we would then eliminate them. So even if they weren't going to do an addition in the future, we would still request this action.
Well, that's why I'm just asking, because he made the comment about future expansion, and I'm just wondering.
I should probably let him answer that.
That was really, we may or may not, this is just since we consolidated the lots. We have 1 lot with an easement right down, sticking in the middle of the lot now. So it was just while we're doing the rest of this work, we threw this in there.
I understand it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, there's plenty of other easements that we have the backup then?
Right, with the new addition and consolidation, the correct easements were then put in place as part of that.
So this is redundant, we don't need it then?
Right.
That's all we need to know.
Okay, thank you. Shannon, any other questions? Next item, 417 West Ogden. Fuller's Car Wash. Board to consider the following. A, an ordinance granting a zoning code variance to increase the number of allowable signs from 3 to 7. B, an ordinance granting a zoning code variance to increase the maximum gross square footage of ground signage to approximately 98.8 square feet. C, an ordinance granting a zoning code variance to increase the maximum gross square footage of all signage to approximately 336.3 square feet. Yes.
Good evening. My name's Dan Olson. I'm with Great Sign Company representing Fuller's Car Wash. Fuller's Car Wash has been in Westmont since 1996 as a full-service car wash. With the economy these days, they've modified their business approach at a couple of the other locations, and it's come time that they're going to do it as well here, which is going from full service to a self-service wash with a free vacuum service. I had this made today because last night with the zoning board, there was some confusion about the way that the layout of the building and these canopies as they affect the site. The whole purpose for the request for approval for the additional signage is born of the fact that going from a full service to self-service, they're adding those long existing buildings here on the left. This is a full-service canopy, and this is a self-service canopy. The existing signs right now that they have, there are two on the building, one at the exit of the car wash, another one on the west side here, and then a freestanding sign here. Of the three existing signs, we're looking to add 14 square feet to the existing road sign, which is this portion right here. Everything else that you see is there today. That portion, again, is the only change to the road sign. On the other two wall signs, the existing wall sign, this shows you what is existing on the top. Car wash letters stay. The Fuller's portion, we're proposing to remove that and replace that with the $3 portion, which is about four square feet smaller, minimally, but smaller than what's existing right now. The after meeting with the zoning board last night, we're decided that we want to eliminate the west wall sign, which is going to be partially obstructed by the full-service canopy anyway. So our requests for new signage mostly fall on those, or on that full-service canopy. This is a little cleaner and easier maybe to see than what you might have. The canopy itself is 110 feet long. It runs north-south. Again, the full-service canopy, which is further to the west the self-service canopy is to the west, is 110 feet long, 102 feet long, 10 feet wide, and 3 feet high.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just I wash my car at home. A self-service canopy, that's, if I'm understanding correctly, you pull in, you wash the car yourself, is that, but I'm not sure if that's correct, and then but I don't understand what the full service canopy
I'm not doing a good job explaining their business, and unfortunately Ben Fuller couldn't be here tonight. It's an automatic wash. Self-service is really referring to the vacuum bays. They have a full-service canopy. You go through, you get your car washed, you can elect to go and pay for full service where they'll clean the interior, they'll dry it for you, and then they have the self-service where you just go through the bay, and then you go to the free vacuum.
And you do it yourself.
And you can do it yourself. And it's a really big thing in their industry right now that is a big draw for people, especially with, you know, with the economic environment. People see free vacuums. And, you know, their other washes, the full-service washes, are much more expensive than what you can get here. Top-notch quality. They're putting about $850,000 into this renovation right now.
So they'll still do a full-service wash? They're still going to continue that, or no?
I think that the full service refers to, I believe you still would get out of your car, or I'm sorry, you would stay in your car. At most of their full-service washes, you exit the vehicle, it's pulled through, right, and then they dry it, and you're done. Now I believe you stay. Everyone will stay in the car.
You just go through,
and then you pull through, and then you can go to your, you know, the free vacuums bay, or you go to the full service, and then you know, they would dry the car for you, vacuum.
Okay.
I'd like to ask Shannon if she would come forward to give us some statistics on the square footage that's allowed,
sure,
what they're asking for, and how far that exceeds our sign requirement.
The code allows one sign per lot, and in this case, there are 3 unconsolidated lots, so technically the petitioners allowed 3 signs. If they were to just leave the signs alone and not touch them, they could do that indefinitely, but now that they're changing the business model in order to reflect the new services, once they've changed it in any way, they have to fully comply with the ordinance. So what they're asking for is an increase in signage from, it's actually 3 to 6 now, given that 1 would be eliminated. The total square footage that would be permitted by code is 142 square feet. With the reductions that were discussed at last evening's public hearing, it would come down to 281.5 square feet.
From 142 to 281?
Correct. 142 square feet to 281.5. As originally published, it was about 336 square feet.
Yeah, that's what comes down to 281, because it's the code that permits 142.
Right.
Okay, so instead of 336, it's 281.
Correct, with the changes that were agreed to last evening. So the reduction is approximately 55 square feet total.
Shannon, one of those signs is that $3 versus where the Fuller's was?
It's the one that you're holding, Trustee Scott, on the west wall, west elevation. Both the $3 symbol and the word car wash would be removed. That would accommodate for about a 50 square foot reduction.
Okay. Although car wash is going to stay.
No, that would also come down.
Which one are you looking at?
The west elevation, right, but not on the north elevation.
North elevation, we're taking down the Fullers and putting up the, the.
Okay.
And
Which one are you looking at?
This one.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, okay.
You know, with all of this, you know, when you see them all with, obviously, the promotion of the $3, $3, I feel like somebody walking into the dollar store and saying, how much is this? But we're hearing self-service and then, you know, the express, and is it kind of like the one where you stay in your car and the thing just goes around you? So it's kind of the
I think that's what
the low-end version of automatic where you don't have to get out and use the guns. So is everything $3 or?
Yes, it is. They've increased at another one of their sites, they had full service, and I think it was 8 to 1 were the cars. So it's a totally different service. Their other washes, they offer a number of different types of, up to, I think, a $15 to $20 wash with where you can get the rims cleaned and the tires and the additional interior cleaning and things like that. Here they're trying to reach a broader customer base. So it's a $3 wash, and if you get a wash, although they have people that try to use their free vacuums with not even getting a wash, but it's very common in the industry now as a marketing approach.
So what's the cost going to be if you get the full service then? It's $3 evidently without, you're vacuuming yourself, but it's going to be more if you're going to use the full service.
You're going to get, you'll pay for additional services, for them to vacuum your car, for them to, if you want your tires armor-alled, dried, whatever it might be.
Okay, but that's the question. I think it's at play here. Are they still going to offer those services at this location? Or is this location now going to be basically a self-serve location to where you vacuum your own car, you stay in your car, you get your car washed, and they're doing away with all the detailing, they're doing away with getting out of your car, going through the wash, and then taking it on the other end? That's the question.
John's shaking his head.
Mr. Fuller, one of the Fullers was at the meeting last night, and he stated that there still would be a full-service option. In fact, Commissioner Anton said, I can't use that self-service facility because my truck's too big. And Mr. Fuller in response said, well, we'll have people there. We can hand wash your car if you want. So they're still having a full-service option, but they're anticipating that most of their customers are going to go through the self-service $3 wash. And they wanted to promote that, was the testimony last night.
You know, I do have a couple of comments. I wish that Mr. Fuller were here because, you know, Fuller's has been around for as long as I can remember, and I'm old. And, you know, the name itself is synonymous with a first-class commercial business. And I have to be honest.
You'll still have that here, I guarantee. I've done work for Walter Filter since 1987, and they're putting a lot of money into this.
I don't
still can be catered to.
I don't doubt that, but I look at this. I'm going to be real honest. I look at this and it reminds me of when I was in Las Vegas a few months ago and I saw signs everywhere that said $3 blackjack. It just doesn't look real tasteful to me. I can't believe I just said it, but it doesn't. I'm very disappointed.
I think my drawing does a little disservice to that, too. No, I would only say this truly, because you're looking at a drawing, it's a 110-foot wide canopy. 110 foot. That didn't exist before. Really what we're asking for is additional signage in order to dress that canopy up. On my drawing, it gives a certain perception. It does not, the amount of signage on that canopy is not exaggerated. The striping detail that we have on there to tie in with the signs all the way around, in addition to what will be done on the striping.
But it's drawn to scale, isn't it?
Well, it is. I'm just saying, from the standpoint of looking at a drawing, the perception is different than seeing a 110-foot canopy in the field.
Well, all I can tell you is tact is not my strong point, so this looks like it's the $3 something, but there is no doubt that it's $3. Anybody who has lived anywhere from west of the city all the way probably to 355 knows what Fuller's means, that has lived here for any amount of time. I'm sure that your signs are well done, okay? I don't like what it looks like. I think that it cheapens any business to promote $3 to the extent that these signs do. We are trying to do something here in Westmont, and I don't think, it certainly doesn't fit with what I would like to see. I think this promotion of $3 cheapens what's going on here.
Fuller's would never go before the board in Hinsdale and ask for something like this. They would get shot down so fast, it wouldn't be funny. And I agree with everyone. I think the signage looks tacky. And for you to say that we really don't understand signs, sir, we have a lot of different companies that come before us with signage, so we're very well aware of what we like and what we don't like. And what I'm hearing from the board is you're going to have to take this back and rework it, because I think it's hurting the Fuller name by putting this type of advertising on a car wash with the name Fuller on it.
Can I ask, how'd the planning vote on this? I mean, what was the results of the voting?
Well, it was a very long discussion. I will say both the staff discussions from staff and from the commissioners were a bit aghast at the size of the variance requested, the percentage over that they were. So then they started talking about, is there a compromise? And they eliminated the west wall sign, which got the square footage down. This went from 100, was it 39% overage?
To about 100.
To just under 100%. They did echo your comments. How often do you have to hit someone upside the head with a $3 message to be effective? Can you say it once and be effective? And then they talked about how our ordinance calculates the amount of allowable signage, gross square footage, and it's based on the facade of the building. This building is long and narrow, so the narrowest part fronts the street, and if we were to hypothetically flip-flop the building, they would be allowed a greater amount of signage, and actually the amount of their variance would be closer to 40%. Based on that justification, they unanimously recommended this approval, provided that one wall sign was removed.
Yes, the other question I have is, throughout the other car washes that he owns, is he doing this to all of them, or is it just a select few?
No, it depends on basically the demographics or the way that the business is.
Location.
Certainly not.
Well, you mentioned Hinsdale. I mean, the demographics are different than they are in Westmont. Or I'm from Joliet. If they were to open up in Joliet, I guarantee it would be this. Yeah. Not full service. It wouldn't be sustained there. No, I think that there's about 12 Fuller's car washes. The first one, I believe, was Aurora. They bought it from a company that was really run down. They tried for 3 years to go full service, and they ended up having to do this. and they turned it around. They bought another wash in Bedford Park, and it was a full-service wash. Again, they invested a ton of money into it and turned it around, and now it's beginning to become profitable.
Was this location for sale? I thought I remembered seeing. The other one is.
The actual
Okay.
self-serve bay.
Okay.
I can't state enough, not the number of signs, whether it's 1 or 5 or 6 or 2, how important, and I understand and I respect what you're saying, but the 3 is critical to what they've invested here. I hear you, I understand. I like to see a title on a sign, not a 3. I'm a sign guy, but it is critical. There are a lot of businesses in this industry. The industry is down right now.
Right.
They're not alone. A lot of them are going to this $3 wash.
If the $3 is critical in Westmont, and saying that Mr. Fuller would not even consider it in other places, we as trustees consider our own demographics. We know what they are, and we have a duty to our residents. As far as I'm concerned, you can tell Mr. Fuller that it is insulting to say that the $3 is critical in Westmont, that he wouldn't even dream of putting somewhere else. I don't like it, and I don't think it fits with our demographics, whatever he may think. And I certainly don't think it fits with the demographics that we want to see develop in this town.
I'd like to go on record that I shouldn't be speaking so much for Mr. Fuller. I hear you, trustee, but I'm probably out of place here tonight, not having someone. I didn't expect to have
so many questions.
Well, good ones about the issues of really what the business model
Can I
is
make
right
a
now.
comment first?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but just a reminder, this is a variance based on the square footage and number of signs, not the content of the signs. When it comes to commercial signage, while you may think that their $3 message is beating you over the head, and that's fine to state, to say that I don't like what's on your sign when it is a commercial message goes too far, I believe is not grounds for denial. So it's really how many times, how big is the sign, how many signs
Then
are
we
there?
can just.
So then we can just,
But he
so
can stay in
if,
code.
yeah, if we want,
He can put
we
a
want it to stay within code, he wants to put the $3 on it, that's fine.
Yeah, and then as far as I'm concerned, there will be no variances on any of the numbers or the square footage. I won't vote for 2 inches
He's got
over.
a message center. He could put $3 on that, special today or all the time, come in $3, but.
That's what staff recommended, and Shannon, I'll let you talk.
Well, just as a point of clarification, within the packets this evening, I believe that a copy, there was a sign permit issued to at least get them going. Staff tried to work with them. So the ground sign swap out has already occurred while we were processing the variances to do the rest. So that's already been installed.
This one here you're talking about?
Correct.
Well, that's pretty darn big, $3. I don't think he needs anything more on there then.
Which one? The one with the electronic message board?
Yes.
And the free vacuums in yellow?
That has not been installed yet.
Okay.
Actually, the faces have not been installed yet.
So that was issued with a variance without our approval?
No, they
Explain
just
to me.
swapped out the lettering on an existing sign.
Right.
Which is okay. They did not enlarge the sign.
But they took the free vacuum out. There's big X's on it.
Yeah, that sign's not up yet.
That's gone.
Staff did suggest also that they could, because this is a grand reopening, that they could have a temporary banner up there, which again could advertise grand reopening $3 car wash for a limited period of time, which would get people's attention, then get removed. You'd have the big monument sign or pole sign, and
These signs are illuminated too, aren't they?
Yep.
The thing is,
Question about the temporary, because we read that somewhere.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that approach, because I really think Fuller's name stands for a lot. It has in all the time.
Oh, it's
great car
synonymous
wash.
with
And-
quality.
And so I think if you can get, we stay within code and put up some temporary, this is still Fuller's, but we're.
All these signs
grand
just
reopening.
cheapen the product to me.
No, the thing is, in all things aside, the gentleman that's here tonight is the sign guy, as he says, great signs.
Right.
I think what I would like to see, I would like to ask Mr. Fuller to come in and talk to us how he came up or how he came to this conclusion that Westmont.
Well, no, I think to John's point, that's really not at issue and shouldn't be, and I understand that. But, and I think this is way too many signs. I think it's, period. I think it's way too many signs. I don't like that they're lit up, but they'll probably be up 24 hours a day because people forget to turn them off. And it does remind me of Las Vegas, but.
Well, John, tell me if we've got more, but we've got two options, is to keep it as is and vote on Monday on the variance request, or we allow Mr. Fuller to come in and tell us whether perhaps there's another design he might like, you know, that goes outside the variance request, and he might, you know, have some epiphany that he would like to see a different sign. So do we give him the opportunity to do that, or do we vote as it is on Monday?
Well, it seems like there's a sense of urgency, because if this was at planning and zoning last night, we have it tonight without even, you know, seeing the minutes or anything. There must be some sense of urgency.
They're underway. They've closed down, so it's important that they get back open. I want to request a motion, you know, to table it, but it's. I really wish I would have had Walter Fuller Sr. here tonight. I know you all know him. I'm out of my league trying to speak on behalf of them as far as their business model.
Well, you shouldn't.
I'll say this, though. I've known him since 1987, and I disagree entirely that it's going to cheapen his business model. It might be your perception, and I appreciate people have different perceptions, but Walter Fuller and none of his family, and it's a big one, would put that out. They've done it in Aurora, and they've done it in other locations. It does not look cheap. They run a professional car wash.
I'd like to
go. But I think if
road trip.
Yeah, I was going to say road trip.
Yeah, I'd like to go.
Don't forget, his business model is to make money.
Yeah.
That's what the business model be, to be a successful company.
Yeah.
And so I'm not quite sure that I think with the signs the way they look, they could be changed. I think it does cheapen it up a little bit. I think Fuller's name has always been for the best car wash in the area.
Yeah.
And I think maybe what's happened is maybe his business model's changed. And if that's what he's doing and he's changing it, then maybe this is the direction he does to keep competitive and to keep you know, business going. At that point, then I think that's something we have to hear from Mr. Fuller, that he's going to tell us that his business model's changed.
Right. And if his business model has changed, then I don't see that he needs even 6 signs.
Well, it sounds like we all agree we need to talk to Mr. Fuller. Could we keep it on the agenda, try to invite him for Monday night, and if we all agree that he can speak on Monday? And then if he's unable to be here, I guess we'd have to table it, if you'd like us to table it. But I don't know
Well, either way, yeah.
Or we vote on it.
Or we vote on it, and unless, Ron, is it something that, like tomorrow or Monday, that if you can follow up if Mr. Fuller wants to come in on Monday, otherwise we, you know, see if he'd rather we vote on it as is, and we'll accommodate that.
If this is denied on Monday, if we vote on it and it's denied, would he have to go back then to planning and zoning with another plan? I mean, would it further delay him?
Yes.
Even tabling or
if he chose another scenario that was in excess of the allowable code.
Okay. So at this point, he either uses the signage he has today, or he starts all over again based on what we're kind of hearing here tonight. Is that a fair assumption? So it really doesn't make a difference if he's here on Monday or not, if we're going to vote on it on Monday. I mean, because even if he says on Monday, okay, I'll go back to I'll just change the signage the way it is today, that really...
He still opens.
Well, 100% over, right now.
Right now.
But maybe if I could come back on Monday and say, you know what, I can reduce this, I can change, you know, reduce the signage and maybe move this one over here, maybe you can get it down to 50% or something more realistic.
Well, I would ask the village,
he wouldn't have
ask the village attorney, I think, if Mr. Fuller came in on Monday and agreed with the board that it should be tabled, and then it came back in a lesser amount of variance, then it would not need to go back to the Planning and Zoning Commission, which would be a little bit faster track than if he had to start from square one.
Okay, so that would be okay then. Because I mean, we don't want to
Yeah,
hold
we
them
don't
up any, if it's a sense of urgency.
Right, no, we don't
Wanna
want to
try to
hold
help
up
them get it.
anything. He has a nice business, so we'll. Oh.
How's that going to affect the $3 price?
We can't say anything.
We can't, that's not.
Well, the price is his problem.
Yeah,
But, you know, a
Don't have
solution
to-
could be, there's that small sign on the north face that's duplicative of the big pole sign. There's the free vacuum sign. You know, by reducing those two, he
Yeah.
eliminates the number of signs, he eliminates square footage.
Right.
The message is still there. Maybe you keep the signage on the smaller signage on the canopy.
Right.
You know, that's up to you guys, but, you know, there's probably compromises that only he could authorize.
And with all the money he'd save, he could send out a direct mail piece
Well, does
saying
the-
my car washes are $3.
Is it the size of the 3 that's throwing it into beyond the square foot variance?
It's
that,
the cumulative
if the
square footage.
3 came down a little bit?
It's the cumulative square footage. I imagine if they shrunk a sign, that could help, but
Yeah.
the signs on that building aren't that big to begin with. I think he said there were 10 square feet, perhaps.
That was the
Which
vacuum
sign, John?
That was the vacuum sign.
And to go back to what we said earlier, if he did go with your suggestion, let's say he came in on Monday and said that, could he still do a temporary banner if we allow that?
Yeah, banners are separate.
Yeah, so that would be separate, which would again promote the business maybe for the remainder of, you know, till October or something,
60
you know,
days, I believe.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
to help promote that. Because once that gets going, people are gonna, you know, it's ingrained.
We're gonna know.
Yeah. I just think it's a shame that he's downgrading the Fuller's part, because those of us who grew up in these parts, it's like,
Yeah.
if we don't see the Fuller, we think it's God knows who.
It was a big thing if you took your car to Fuller's.
I'm not sure.
Well, I
that-
share, the one thing, again, I'm out of my place here, but they're very proud and they run a class operation. Their name is everything to them.
Yeah.
There's a really good reason, and it's not vanity, why they're putting that 3 up. They're not alone, their competitors are doing it. We had a display in our shop today. I walked out after being here last night all night, and there it was. Free vacuum, and then $3 or whatever it was wash.
Yeah.
And I guess I'd like to leave here tonight, if I could, with an understanding of, when I go to Mr. Fuller, the main issue is just the number 3. It's going to have to be eliminated altogether?
We can't do that, that's signed content, and we're precluded from eliminating it. He would, would we like him to reconsider it? I would personally, but I can't, none of us can ask him to. We can't force him to, because it's signed content, which is protected.
Correct.
But we can control the size of all these 3s.
I think, and John, again, I'll refer back to you and piggyback on what Trustee Emery is saying. Each one of these signage requests, variances, are separate. However, we start approving at 100% over. Another guy comes in, you're gonna have to evaluate that one separately.
Well, then you
okay,
got
it's
this, then you
50%,
have the
you got another one coming.
car wash on South
So, I
Cass
mean,
that now
so
they
there's
want to
also-
do it, yeah.
There's also,
Yeah.
I don't want to say a precedent, because we have to look at them separately, I understand that. However, once you open the floodgates to 100%, I think we
There's
gotta-
a big variance.
That's a big variance.
It's a really big
Is that
variance.
a fair way to put it?
I think that's a legitimate concern you have. Yeah, anytime you grant a variance, especially one that's 100%, you have to worry about that.
I'd just only say that there's some unique conditions here.
Right.
With the canopy. We wouldn't be asking for any more signage at all if they weren't putting up canopies. None.
No, and that's what
We
we're
wouldn't be
saying.
asking for any more additional signage.
We have to look at each case individually, so yours is unique, so, okay, going over, we can understand that 100% might be more than,
We talked a lot last night about the numbers, and unfortunately, the current code in Westmont it only has one allowance for signage across the board, and that's based 2 square feet on your building frontage. And the zoning board last night heard us and was very great. I was grateful. They were grateful. They allowed us to use the north-south. The building is north-south rather than east-west. So it was you could call it a hardship, a reasonable difficulty, the way the building is placed on the 3 lots. 71-foot wide building times 2 all their signage, the freestanding signage, has to fall within that 142 square feet. The wall signage, which they're allowed 3 there on 3 lots, all has to fall within that. Most villages have separate parts in their ordinance for freestanding signs, for wall signs, and some even for canopy signs. And I only say that, it's Westmont's ordinance, and I'm not saying your ordinance, you should run out and change it. I'm just stating that you don't have separate allowances for not only building and wall signage, but for a 110-foot canopy that they're
And the response from the commissioners when he pointed to Aurora's ordinance and some other communities' ordinances was, we're not Aurora, and try this in Oak Brook or some other towns, and you'll find even more restrictive sign regulations. So every community is different. Ours, Westmont's is what it is. I know staff said this is 3 lots, so you're allowed 1 sign per lot, but it's used as a combined lot for zoning purposes. There's a single use. I think that's a very generous interpretation by staff for the benefit of this business to say 3 signs are allowed. The request is now for 6. It was 7. You could say we're going to treat this as a single lot for zoning purposes when it comes to setbacks, which I assume we would. Single lot for other zoning purposes, but for signage, we're going to treat it as 3 separate lots is generous.
Well, where do we go from here? Bring it up just Monday? Are we going to talk, Ryan, you going to call?
We could put it on the agenda, and if I heard correctly, we can contact Mr. Fuller, see if he can come. If he can't, then I suppose you could table it if he's okay with that?
Well, if you get a hold of him, ask him if he can't make it, if he'd rather table it or have us vote as is.
Yes.
And then on Monday, depending on what he says, you can table it then and ask for more information, or you can amend it on the fly, and we can just change the ordinance however the vote is.
Okay.
Seems to me like he's coming in at the last minute.
Pretty much.
This was before planning and zoning last night and comes before us. He was worried about the signs and he was doing this whole project. It seems like all of a sudden he realized he had to take care of the signage. That's not our fault. If he doesn't come in and give us adequate time to look at what he wants to present and, make whatever adjustments this board can agree to, I think that's fine. I don't think we should be pigeonholed into rushing on this and end up with something that when it's finally done isn't what we would like to see there. But we're rushing it through, and I don't think that's our fault. If he needs time, if he's going to open up like you're saying, put up a big temporary banner while we make whatever decisions are necessary to do this correctly. And not rush into it. I mean, once it's up, it's going to be sitting there for years and years. And let's make sure that it's done the way we want it done. Any other comments?
Just one thing, Your Honor. Shannon, what is the, there's a square footage allowance on temporary banners, I believe.
It's 50 square feet.
So that could be a 5x10 sign, for
Right,
example, that would
right.
be quite visible. Okay.
They could do that for up to 60 days per calendar year. And in the meantime, too, they also have the electronic message board that they can put various information on as well.
And hearing no further comments, next item.
Okay.
234 West Burlington.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Or to consider the following. A, an ordinance granting a zoning code variance request for relief from the maximum allowable density in order to build 1 duplex structure. B, an ordinance granting a preliminary plat of subdivision request to consolidate 2 lots into 1 buildable lot. And C, an ordinance granting site plan and landscaping plan approval.
Good evening. My name is John Abunijme, and I'm here tonight to ask the board for a vote on the final site plan.
Would you give us your address, please?
Excuse me?
May we have your address, not the address of the building, but your address where you live?
Oh, okay. I live at 1024 Chadwick Court in Aurora, Illinois.
Okay. Thank you.
Cool. So I have since we last met, I have revised the the site plan, and I provided a detention pond in the back and convey the water into the village storm sewer. So I'm seeking your approval for the final site plan.
Did you do away with the detached two-car garage that you wanted to put behind there?
I like, but you guys did not allow me to do that.
Sorry, I have a question for you. Since you were last here, I don't recall when it was. Was it a year ago?
Yes.
About a year.
You have had for sale on various realty sites, 234 Burlington, West Burlington, with a proposed single-family house.
Right.
So I've been watching that, and obviously you didn't have any takers on it. And because you didn't, is that why you're back to the duplex?
No, my first goal is really to build a duplex. That's my goal. But I had it as an option because actually at one point I thought I just sell the property and get it done.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but we have talked and we need to put back on the agenda the issue with all of our stormwater stuff to bring the issue of bringing back lot coverage to 35%. And I appreciate your efforts, and I know, you're trying to do the right thing with your property. I'm still uncomfortable doing variances to put more buildings on land than what the code currently requires. And I still think the lot is too small for a duplex.
The lot and similar other lots in the area, that's what they did. And it's zoned for duplex. The property is zoned for duplex.
We understand
And no
that.
restriction on lot coverage for that particular location. So, but I tried to work something out. I reduced it to 40%. And even with the detention bond that you are requesting, I disagree with it. I talked to so many engineers that they are specialized with this type of work. The lot is too small, but in order to move the project forward, I'm going to do it, just to satisfy the village.
There's the issue of a flood. It's a flood area. It's an area that has traditional flooding.
This site is not going to solve the problem, but as I said, I'm willing to do it.
We don't want you to solve the problem. What we don't want is to add to it by putting too much building on too little land. So.
However, I would say that with the 40% lot coverage, it's what a single-family house could go on there, and not at 40%.
I understand that.
And I don't, he's not required to do 40%. You can deny him because of the flood issues. However, if someone came in for a permit and said, I want to build a single-family house, doesn't require site plan review, doesn't come to the village board, as long as they meet the 40% and the setbacks, it doesn't even come to
Doesn't
this.
it still request the variance, though? Because or is it within the, totally within the?
No, you're right. There is a variance here for density. So
That's what I thought, 2 lots.
But the variance is because of 3 bedrooms. I can put a 2 bedrooms unit and I don't need a variance. And we talked about it that last time. This property is zoned for 2 units with 2 bedrooms each.
And last time.
I was advised by the staff to add the additional.
Right, and last time we expressed explicitly that we did not like the idea of a building this large on the property. We understand what you're saying.
But you allowed it somewhere else. I mean, so I don't.
And unfortunately,
I don't see what the reason.
Excuse me a second. Now, And you are 100% correct. But we also now are having to answer for things that have transpired in the past, and we're not the only village board having to deal with this issue now as far as water and ground coverage. Trust me, other villages are dealing with the same scenario. So, yes, things have been done in the past. You're 100% correct. But going forward, we're being a lot more cautious on what can be built, where it can be built, how it can be built. And we've also decided in a lot of cases that we're going to go back and take a look at some of our building codes, some of the zoning issues that we have involved. I mean, it's not a question of that or what has been done. What has now happened and transpired after all these years, that's all now caught up with us. Okay. And we have issues with water.
Okay, and
right around the corner.
I'm providing a detention pond to do that.
But still, I mean, we're not even finished with that entire issue yet. But we don't even have the final report in front of us yet.
You're going to put these up for sale?
At one time, yes.
No. I mean, if you would ever finish these.
Yes.
These will be for sale.
Yes.
They will not be rentals.
No.
Only for sale.
Yes.
Yeah, my turn. I've been a proponent of reducing that, but we haven't. We're at 40%.
I'd like to see it put on an agenda as quick as we can put it on there.
But
he wants to go over.
What's that? No, he's going to be at 40%. Is that correct?
Right.
It's the density, the number of.
It's the density that's the issue with this particular location.
So if you want to put 2 bedrooms in and still keep it at 40%, that would be allowable under what we have. So I think we need to be careful. I mean, as much as I think our buildings are too big, and that's why we're doing this. But we are still at 40% right now.
If you have a stormwater problem and you're concerned that any development is going to potentially, upstream development is going to exacerbate that, and perhaps it's because of the current lot coverage requirements being too generous, you do have an option, which is to put a moratorium on this sort of work, which you informally did last year when you said to this applicant, hold off, we're studying this, it's going to take some time, we're concerned about the flooding downstream. You didn't formally enact a moratorium. You can do that. You can put it on the agenda for Monday to enact a moratorium if you can phrase it properly. You can table this and consider it. You know, you've got some options. I don't know that saying this is too big a building when a single-family house could be built in the exact same footprint is a rational basis for denying this.
Now, the stormwater detention that he's putting in, will that take care of the problems of his lot? I can't speak further down, I know. I mean, has the engineering looked at it and said, you know what, that'll take care of that?
Well, trustee, the goal of the stormwater ordinances of both the County of DuPage and the Village of Westmont are to say that when development occurs, we're trying to make it so that the runoff from this property is equal to or less than what it was before the development occurred.
Okay.
And stormwater detention is one tool or device that can be used to control the release rate, retain that water on site, and release it slowly and more gradually so that you don't contribute any more so than you already have in the past to other problems that may be downstream. Now, obviously, that's an attempt to regulate building. If you have an existing problem in a certain area, and we know that just a couple of blocks to the west at the low point there where I think it's Cumner Street, we have had a problem where water does stand for a long period of time. So the mere fact that you are doing new development that covers up more of the ground is in and of itself a factor that, you know, I understand is under consideration.
Now, there are still structures there that have to be torn down, correct?
That is correct. I think there's still 2 single-family homes. And
sorry, not 2 singles, 1 single family with a detached garage.
Yeah, okay, and a detached garage. And that brings up another point, trustee, that you know, we've had numerous complaints from neighbors in the neighborhood that they'd like to see this boarded up structure come down. And we've talked to Mr. Abaninja about you know, demolishing the structure, and he's explained to us that he wants to wait until he gets approval because he doesn't want to demolish this structure, fill in the hole, then come back and excavate the hole again to put in the new structure. But that doesn't eliminate or satisfy the neighbors that are unhappy with a property that's boarded up and has tall grass.
Well, we have ordinances against said things, don't we?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and so that part of what Mr. Abuninja is discussing with staff is, I want to wait on demolishing the structure until I get approval from my building plans. Staff's position has been, we don't know when that will be, and, you know, the structure needs to come down, whether you get approval for building plans in the future or not.
Yeah, I mean, we would require that of any particular property owner. If the particular buildings on the property are in disrepair and...
It's not a point of negotiation.
Yeah, I mean, that's not negotiable. I mean, that's...
Fred, is
Both
the
of
amount of
these-
stormwater management on the property sufficient? Have we had an engineer from our end look at it?
Yeah, I think Village Planning Engineer Kim Nickel has looked at
Kim
this.
has done a couple of preliminary reviews, and as you referenced the county stormwater ordinance, it couldn't be greater than, the release rate couldn't be greater than what it is now. And if this were to go forward and be approved, it would all be subject to final engineering approval to confirm that. Typically, the village board approval would occur first before the final engineering plans are drawn up and submitted, so that he didn't go through the cost of doing that until he knew the project was moving forward.
In other words, if the board gave conceptual approval to this, staff would guarantee that that stormwater release rate and the village and county ordinances would be met by the final engineering design, or we would refuse to issue the building permits at the staff level.
And does he have enough property back there to be able to pull that off?
Until we see the final engineering calculations, we do not know the answer to that question.
So that's basically a shot in the dark right now that there's even room to do that.
Well, but I think, trustee, that's the case with all building site plan applications that the board approves.
Right, but I'm saying based on the size of the particular building that's going on this property, based on the amount, I mean, versus what's there now, versus what's going to go there, whether or not there would actually be enough room to put the detention area in to hold what you need on that parcel.
If there were not enough above-ground area to do it, then the applicant would have to do it underground, which is much more expensive. And if he did not provide sufficient detention
Got it on his drawing. I mean,
to meet those requirements, then no building permit would be issued.
And I understand it's on the drawings, but until it's actually engineered
Right.
and looked at and gone through, it doesn't...
You know, these are two substandard lots. I have no problem putting them together and coming up with a 60-foot lot, but I do have a problem with a townhome on such a small lot.
The other problem we have, it's also
duplex.
it's also zoned R5.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's zoned for that, but I think it's too much.
Can I ask, if this does go through, what would these be selling for? Because you're going to sell the duplexes, right? You're not going to rent them.
I don't know.
Because we have so many right now that are $400,000, $500,000 townhomes, duplexes that are vacant.
Yeah.
And I'd hate to approve another one.
To sit vacant.
To sit vacant.
Especially because, practically speaking, would you buy a townhouse where your entire backyard is necessarily a detention area? I mean, I think you're going to put something up and you're going to be sitting on property that can't sell.
Would it be
Because a
conducive to
single-family
family?
home would not require that detention pond. I mean, if you're going to build something on spec, and then sell it,
Risky.
Well, I don't know. It's not conducive to a family.
No.
It's going to have water in the backyard, and they're going to have small kids. It's the possibility that somebody buys that.
Yeah, nobody's,
Well, it's back to either
Be a dry-
a young professional or empty nesters.
Yeah, it don't hold water if it rains.
Only if it rains, okay.
I don't want to speak for the petitioner, maybe he could talk to some of these points, but I believe it is a dry bottom. It would only hold water in an excessive rain event. Also, if you could also speak to, I believe that the design was used or come up with after using the calculation sheets that Kim Nickel provided. So there was some rhyme or reason in terms of where the detention would go and what the overall capacity should be.
So where are we?
Same where we were a year ago.
Monday night.
I'm afraid he gets them built, then he comes back after a year and he says he can't sell them and he wants to rent them at that point. With as much, like Trustee Forsley's point is that we have so much available right now, adding 2 more.
And that is happening. There are examples where.
And I would not be in favor of that at all.
Right.
Of any rental whatsoever.
No. Could not support that. It's just such a small piece.
Any more further questions?
I went and reviewed from a year ago, and it was kind of interesting because we're at the same problem. Density, selling price. You asked and begged for a selling price, and you still don't have one. We still don't know. Is it going to sell? Is it not going to sell? Is it above it? We did discuss a slight thing about, the density that we should be reviewing it, and nothing, I don't know if anybody's been reviewing our density in here, if nothing's been done about it. We really, if the density is what's going to push, we really have to get together and start pushing this density and review our density. It is downtown, and that's where you guys wanted all the heavy density. And I mean, that's why I don't know how it got pushed to an R5, but I wish it didn't.
I just find it peculiar that you are an engineer, that you haven't factored in the cost of this project and what you're going to sell them for.
I don't see what would make a difference to you, whether I sell it for
we want to know
whether I want to sell it for $1 or I want to sell it for $200,000 or $300,000. I mean, I don't see really the point.
Well, because we have to see if it fits in the community for the pricing.
Whether the building stays empty or what difference would it make to you, sir?
Because we don't want any more empty buildings that we have in the community now, and we also want to make sure that the building is conducive to the area price-wise.
But I'm the one who pays the taxes. So with all due respect...
And we may have to put up with the crime that could happen or of an abandoned building that never gets sold. And I think we have enough of those in town right now.
Well, and if it's...
You won't be living in the building. You won't be here. You're going to be in Aurora. We're going to have to put up with what's here.
I might move in it, too.
Well, you see, now, I was just getting ready to say, because that was part of the discussion a year ago, was that you were going to live on one side of it, and there was a possibility that one of either your sons or somebody else would be living on the other side.
I said that.
Okay, all right. All right. Well, I'll think about it over the weekend.
Should be a larger parcel of property for a building like this. There should have a third lot.
Sir, I did, prior to purchase it, I did meet with the village staff. They should have informed me with that. I mean, to come and ask me at this point, after I buy it, 2 years later, and ask me and put restriction on me, that's unjustified. No
You are
ground
asking
it.
for a variance, correct?
I don't need a variance. I could build the two units with the 2 bedrooms, and I don't need a variance.
But that's not the plans you submitted to, that's in
No,
front
I
of this
understand
board.
that.
So if you
But
want
the
to
village
withdraw-
staff asked me to add the third bedroom.
I have a question. If he were to withdraw this plan and go ahead and build the 2-bedroom, he would still need the detention.
There would still have to be some
Right?
water, yeah, there would still have to be engineering for the water.
So I think the choice is actually yours to make.
Yep.
Do you want to go with the 2-bedroom and withdraw this, or?
It's fine.
I mean,
I can do two bedrooms. As I said, I disagree with the detention area, but I'm willing to do it just to have the project move forward so I can get your approval. But it won't make a difference.
And, you know, with regard to cost, I think it is critical that we have some idea. And the example I'll give is if you're going to sell these for $47,500 each, or if you're going to sell them for $850,000 each, that makes a big difference to the neighborhood in either scenario. And we have a lot of, you know, 500,000 plus townhomes that are empty now.
So I have to be punished because other units are empty and I cannot do anything with my property?
I think they just wanted information.
Just as a benchmark, just as a,
Asking for information.
just
Well,
for
if you build the
information.
buildings and they stay empty, aren't you punished, that you're punishing yourself at that point because you're not getting any return on it?
But I don't have anything empty.
He's financing it himself.
I understand that.
No.
He's,
I understand that.
Which is good.
I mean, I appreciate that the detention's there. I know he wanted that garage. I appreciate if he got to the 40% green space, but it still doesn't answer a density. However, there's another thing that we did bring up a year ago that he can do, and that's put 2 bedrooms and a den in, and once he closes, that den could be converted behind our backs to a bedroom. I've seen the builders do it because I've worked for them.
Yep.
Well, if he wants to do something illegal, I think that's his choice, but there's consequences to that if,
Well, I mean, you know, the bottom line is, if he wants to drop it back to 2 bedrooms, pull these plans off the table, and proceed with the 2-bedroom units, that's fine. But every spec of engineering for water runoff, property on it and off of it, I guarantee you, we're going to look at every bit of it.
well, as we do with
Because
every
water-
single
water-
project.
Yeah, water is a great concern to us right now in this village.
And he still has to come in for the lot consolidation.
Right. I'd really like to see what's there torn down as a, you know, I mean, that's part of our ordinance. And I mean, you need to maintain what's there now, even going forward. That's not even being a good neighbor to the village, with property you own in the village. So, that's all I got to say about it.
Any other questions?
No. No. It's just the density. That's the only issue I have is the density.
And we'll move forward on Monday, and it'll be listed the same way that it is right now. Is that correct? Okay.
If he chooses to reduce that to a 2-bedroom, could he do that, or no? Would he have to go back and redo the whole thing again? How does that work?
The site plan should get reviewed because we require as part of a site plan, typically, or you can require to see the floor plan, see how it's going to be laid out. I think in this particular case, that would be worth doing. Perhaps that aspect of it would have to go to planning and zoning because it's different. That would be up to you whether to send it back to them, or you can just leave it up here and say, okay, we'll look at your plans for a 2-unit and review it. Then there wouldn't be the variance, but you still have site plan approval. Is that correct, Fred?
Yes. And you got to consolidate.
The house that was, that was there, was it a 3-bedroom?
Pretty small.
Oh, it's a little, it's got, if it is, it would be in the basement. Those are 2-bedroom houses.
Yeah, that's only a 30-foot lot, so that house is probably really.
Does the house straddle 2 lots, John?
It's, the house is on the east lot. Part of it may be on the west lot.
Okay.
And the garage is on the west lot.
Okay.
Okay, unless there's any other questions, we'll be considering this at our meeting on Monday night.
Thank you.
The way it's listed on our agenda. Next item, voluntary retirement agreement. Board to consider approval of a voluntary retirement agreement.
Got it.
Manager Searle.
Well, this is similar to several other agreements that we've had in the past. This is one that the board has some knowledge and information about, and We are at a point where we just need to have the board's approval.
Okay. Any questions?
Nope.
Finance ordinance number 6.
Waive the reading?
Request to waive the reading. Purchase orders.
I have a question on the second purchase order, services for June 2010. This Morris Architects, what was that for, and is that a reimbursable?
This is for the services for the company that we're using, Don Morris, for the inspections and the plan reviews. And yes, it is.
So then this is going to be, this will be brought, we're covering it under the permits. Okay, because the one side it said reimbursed by permits for Burns and McDonald.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But it didn't say it on this side.
Right.
But we are covered and we will get reimbursed for this?
Right. Well, we have permit fees.
Right.
And my understanding, and Craig can speak to this, but our tracking has shown that we're breaking even, if not doing.
Okay, that's what I just want to make sure. So these are both handled the same then? That they're both?
Yes, one is on the engineering side, one is for building and development permit fees, like building, electrical, and plumbing permits.
Okay, so they're both covered under the permits. Thank you.
Yes,
Just
ma'am.
wanted to verify that. Thank you.
On the PO for Don Morris Architects, right, all it says is services for June 2010. It doesn't.
Okay. We do have a very detailed list of, an itemized list of those, and we'd be happy to provide those to the board tomorrow.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
Staff has been inordinately pleased with the level of detail that Morris Architects has done for us, up
Okay.
to and including the billing for said services.
Okay.
Good.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions on purchase orders? Okay, unless there's something else come before us, I would entertain a motion for an executive session regarding personnel and litigation.
So moved.
Second, Scott.
Roll call.
Trustee Fleming.
Yes.
Trustee Forsley.
Yes.
Trustee Klebanow.
Yes.
Trustee Emery.
Yes.
Trustee Scott.
Yes.
Trustee Seneca.
Yes.
6 votes aye, Your Honor.
Thank you. We are adjourned to executive session.